So much impressed with the development of Sri Lanka in all the spheres, including the infrastructure, services, and still we know that our relation with Sri Lanka goes beyond more than 3,000 years. And written history, if you see, definitely it mentioned from Ashoka time when he sent his son and daughter to spread Buddhism. Buddhism was started in India, but still Sri Lanka is predominantly Buddhist country. It is very well doing after independence in 1948, and we can say that in South Asia, it is ranked number one in Human Development Index, far above India. India is 143 and Sri Lanka is 78. Second largest, you can the per capita income in this region, South Asia. Founder of, you can say that SARC and G77 and non-aligned movement, member of UN and Commonwealth Nations. We can say that when there was fight going on with LTTE and Sri Lankan Sinhalese, I felt when I was there in 1984, I was there 1.5 months. And I can say that that was the open door for myself and my career for the whole world. It was a UNDP program, and I stayed there in Colombo for 1.5 months. That time also, I knew that relation with India was very good, but in between 90s and later on, few years when the fight was going on, it was a little bit rough relation. But I can say that now again, when the Prime Minister Modi came in power, relation has improved. And when Sri Lanka went through the economic crisis in 2019, especially 2022, India came forward to help Sri Lanka by always even they giving the credit for more than $4 billion. And that way, I can say that Sri Lanka has a very important partner in the neighborhood first policy of Prime Minister Modi. And Sagar, which India started, that is also most important. The strategic location and geopolitical location of Sri Lanka is very important for India. And that's why it's very important to discuss how we can strengthen relation between India and Sri Lanka. Uh, History says that we have the cultural, religion, social, trade also with Sri Lanka. I can say that the highest trade, even the third highest trade is with India, more than 60%. We take from Sri Lanka, and that way we can say that we have lot of comprehensive connectivity. And now Ashokji will tell us how when Ram Mandir has been built here and how Sri Lanka has developed. All the places where Sita ji, others, and now it was a question of mythology and there was no proof. But now after Supreme Court judgment, it has been proven that Ram was. Perhaps those places, India is sending highest number of tourists to Sri Lanka. More than 100,000 people are visiting there. There are so many things, economic and technical cooperation, which the experts will talk to you. Adoption of UPI for trading in rupees, that is also very, very good thing. Economic ties are improving, and foreign direct investment of India is 1.7 billion in Sri Lanka from 2005 to 2019. Big mistake, definitely Sri Lanka is playing a great role, and technical cooperation is improving. Tourism, I mentioned to you, flourishing like anything. And geographical location is very important for us, for the security region also, to see that how we can keep the balance. There are some challenges also. There are some challenges like fisheries. Sometimes they are getting arrested because of some doubt about one of the island, which is nowadays in the politics also. Talked about the Kachativu Island. which was given to Sri Lanka in 1974 during Indira Gandhi time. Again, it has come out in politics also, okay, why it was given. But it was agreement that Indian fishermen can do the fishing there also, and there should not be any problem. But perhaps there is some thing to border security is another and smuggling is because there is no boundary like such. It is a porous boundary. Tamil ethical issues are also the great thing which he is talking. Most important thing which he is concerned about, China influence in Sri Lanka. So I think all the speaker, I don't want to dwell much detail on that one because I had to just welcome. And if I dwell upon that one, it will be dishonesty with the speakers and the experts. They are the one they will talk about that how to see that security concern of India, China influence, Tamil ethnic issues, and what need to be done to strengthen the relation and what is the way forward. So with these few words, I welcome all the speakers, the participants, physically who are present here in this hall, and those who have joined online. I welcome all of you and thank you for sparing come and to share this seminar. Welcome once again on behalf of ARSP.
Thank you very much. I'd like to join Dr. Markandey Rai in welcoming all our very distinguished presenters. Some of them are truly outstanding. In fact, Ambassador Yash Sinha was Indian High Commissioner to Sri Lanka. Ashok Bihuria, who I worked with in IDSA, is one of the foremost experts on South Asia, combining very good understanding and knowledge of many of our neighboring countries. So I'm very glad that he's joined us today. Professor Kharat from JNU, the School of International Studies, which focuses a great deal on the neighboring region. He's also there. I'd like to thank him as well. Sri Lanka is an important neighbor. And I think with our neighbors, we have a very unique relationship. I think what needs to be clearly stated, it is at least in our understanding, that the political stability and economic well-being of our neighbors is in our long-term interest. And sometimes we have to do things unilaterally, without reciprocity. Many people in India seem to labor under the impression that why should India alone be doing something? But I think that amounts to taking a very short-term view. It is also commonly misrepresented that India is trying to dominate. Probably our size, it gives rise to such apprehensions. But I think it is all very important, keeping that in view, for us to ensure that we don't invade on the sovereignty of our neighboring countries. We allow them full sovereign space. And if there is any misunderstanding, I think we need to take steps to dispel any doubts or misgivings on that account. Neighboring countries also have to, on their part, be mindful of our security interests and take ownership of economic projects. In ARSP, we've always advocated that there is a huge potential for carrying forward our economic cooperation. But we cannot and should not seek to fill up the entire economic cooperation space. We cannot do it. Whether it is Nepal or Sri Lanka or Bangladesh, none of these countries, India alone, can meet the requirements. So I think you talked about China. I don't think, in my opinion, China is that big an issue insofar as Sri Lanka is concerned. And we ought not to look at it like that. Not to look at India-Sri Lanka relationship from the prism of China. So I think that is another way of looking at it. But we have our experts who will dwell on many of these issues. I feel that going and there is a lot which can go between India and Sri Lanka, as between India and other neighbors, the geographical proximity. But then there should be enough space for Sri Lanka to develop relationship with other countries, as long as it is not detrimental to our security interests. I think that is the marker, that is the key marker, that is the litmus test. And how do we ensure it? It's not easy. Um, so at this stage, I would like to invite Ambassador Sinha to make his remarks. You have 15 minutes, Yash. Uh, sorry. Oh, no, no, no. We need to honor our. Sorry, I forgot. Markandey ji. Yes. Most welcome. Gopal ji. Professor Bihuria ko. Welcome. और नारायण जी को विजय नारायण जी देंगे वो अशोक को Ashok sir, go again. There are again. You know, so initially when I said, how come Ashok Kant? Actually, I had spoken to him, and he wasn't. He was traveling to Indonesia. Please.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Ambassador Virendra Gupta, the President of ARSP, Dr. Dr. Bihuria, Ambassador Dayaker, Professor Kharat, Dr. Rai, Shri Ashok Kantha. I was confusing you with my predecessor in Sri Lanka, Ashok Kantha. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to, at the outset, thank Ambassador Gupta for inviting me to speak to you on what I consider a very important topic. I, of course, left Sri Lanka at the end of 2016, but have been following developments closely, both in my next assignment in London and since I returned from London in at the end of 2018. I think when you look at India-Sri Lanka relations, you need to have a map in your mind, and all of you are aware of the subcontinent, the geographical limits of the subcontinent, and the map of of South Asia, and you see how strategically placed Sri Lanka is. Dr. Rai mentioned about the pearl-shaped island at the bottom, our soft flank in the south. I think it's important that we keep that perspective in mind when we discuss our relations. And also, it gives you a perspective of our relationship through the ages, through the history. I just want to briefly recap, but it's important. Because unless you are aware of what happened in the past, we tend to then make the same mistakes in the future, the present, and it's important that we see things in the right perspective. Now, I'm sure all of you are aware that the links to India and Sri Lanka, people of India and Sri Lanka, perhaps predate history, really, recorded history. Uh, the five Ishwarams in Sri Lanka. I mean, there were supposed to be six, but five have been identified. And I just want to recall Irimalai Naguleshwaram in Jaffna, Tirukoteshwaram in Manar, Tirukuneshwaram in Trincomalee, and Muneshwaram in Chilao. And there's one in Gaul which is missing. Now, these are important because these are the most ancient places of worship of Lord Shiv, Bhagwan Shiv in perhaps the subcontinent, but certainly in the southern part of the subcontinent. So much so when our former Prime Minister Chaudhry Charan Singh visited Trincomalee and he saw that was supposed to be where Ravan had done a lot of tapasya. He remarked that I have reached Dakshin Kailash. And this was told to me by a Tamil leader, a very revered political leader of Mr. Sambandan. And he's written about it also. So just to put, and of course you have the Katragama in the south, the southernmost tip near Hambantota, a temple, again an ancient temple, both used for worship for Hindus and for Buddhists. So this sort of confluence between the people, between our cultures, between our faiths, actually predates history. Of course, we are aware of Prince Mahinda or Mahendra, because I believe that he came from my hometown. Though he lived with his mother in Vidisha, he actually took the blessings of his father, Emperor Ashoka, after the third Buddhist conference in Patliputra and sailed. The Mahavamsa talks about a different route, but we in Patla, in the old Patliputra, and there's a ghat even today called Mahendru Ghat. A lot of people think that it is named after King Mahendra of Nepal. No, it predates King Mahendra by centuries, by millennia perhaps. So it's basically supposed to be the place we believe that Prince Mahendra or Prince Mahinda, as the Sri Lankans call him, sailed down the Ganges and then into the Bay of Bengal and then into Sri Lanka. Now, that is important because for the Sinhala Buddhists, this is a very important moment, and which, when I was High Commissioner, I emphasized repeatedly. That is the conversion of King Devanampi Atisa at Mihimtale near Radhapura. He'd gone on a hunting expedition. He encountered Prince Mahendra or Bhikkhu Mahinda, who converted him. Just to give a background, of course, to the third faith, Islam, I did not realize when I reached Sri Lanka that the majority of the Muslims in Sri Lanka come from India. And the head of the Sri Lanka Muslim uh, party, Congress party, he requested me in my first meeting whether I could give him some religious books, teachings, and the Quran Sharif, etc., in Tamil. And I was taken aback. But that is the language that that was their mother tongue till the LTT decided that they were different people, and then they, of course, disowned the Tamil heritage to some extent. But anyway, this is the background. Now, I think it's important that in the modern era, and I'm not going to, because I have a paucity of time, so I'm only going to touch upon certain events. The Indian origin Tamils coming there, distinct from the Sri Lankan Tamils, the ethnic problem there, the Simavo Bandanayake Shastri Pact, where we agreed to take back, I think it was 1964, we agreed to take back a large number of Indian origin Tamils. The British had sent them as indentured labor to work in the tea gardens in plantations in central Sri Lanka. These are some of the important, significant moments. Of course, when we did what is called the Paripu drop, and the Paripu means dal in Sinhalese. The Paripu drop was in May 1987 when Indian Air Force aircraft entered Sri Lanka. They call it a violation of their sovereignty and airspace, and they certainly have a legal case for it. But the circumstances you're aware of dropped food packages on Jaffna, which was besieged by the Sri Lankan army. And then, of course, the India-Sri Lanka Accord, which was a defining moment in India-Sri Lanka relations, followed by the deployment of the IPKF and its withdrawal. So I am not going to get into that because you're perhaps aware of it. But all that has influenced how India-Sri Lanka relations has shaped up since then. The bitterness of the LTT activities, which they squarely attribute, and let's not mince words here, they squarely attribute to the India and India's agencies. I won't go into detail because I'm aware of certain things which I don't think it is not an appropriate forum to share. But that had really the Paripu drop, the IPKF had really influenced the Sinhala Buddhist thinking, which became, I wouldn't say adverse to, certainly adverse to India, but had a big impact on demonstrations against India and the calls for withdrawal of the IPKF, and when President Premadasa actually asked us to leave. And you know that the IPKF, despite the valiant sacrifices of our soldiers, did not turn out the way we had planned. Perhaps Prabhakaran was too shrewd for us. But having said that, that has influenced their thinking even till today. And I will link it to certain events later on. But what is important is that despite the fact that we could not help Sri Lanka in its war materially beyond, we couldn't supply ammunition or any offensive weapons. We did help Sri Lanka in its fight against the LTTE, especially after the assassination of Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi. But and then the period after that, towards the end of the war, we helped them with intelligence, with radar intelligence information about LTT motherships and gun running, etc. So we did help them a great deal. However, we didn't supply them arms because we ourselves had in a dilemma. We had the Tamil population in India, their interests, their concerns, their sensitivities to look after. So even though we did not participate in the war by giving them intelligence or actively helping the Sri Lankan armed forces, we provided vital support, and that had been acknowledged by the Sri Lankan government of that time and their military leaders. Now, that led to a very close relationship between our armed forces. And Sri Lankan armed forces, especially the Navy, but even the Army and Air Force, have been trained in large numbers in India at various forces. So there is that linkage. Of course, we've had problems in say, the Staff College in Wellington, where Gotabaya Rajapaksa himself, who was the former president and that time the defense secretary at the end of the war, during the war, end of the war. He himself has studied there or done a course there. But when I went to Sri Lanka, had just thrown out or asked two Sri Lankan armed forces officers to leave because of the local politics in Tamil Nadu. So I think what we need to realize now is that despite our very close links, historical, religious, people to people contacts, there have been through history some ups and downs, the Cholas, etc. Lara versus Duttomenu, that's the famous battle where fought. So these are things that are there in our history, which we can't change. But the positives are far greater than the negatives. I mean, when I tell people that the Mahabodhi tree in Bodh Gaya is there thanks to the Mahabodhi tree in Anuradhapura, which was a sapling was transplanted after Bakhtiaruddin Khilji had cut down the tree in Gaya in the 12th century. So these links sometimes people forget. And I think you need to constantly remind them. But that itself will not serve our purpose in terms of advancing our relationship. What did change, and I felt there was a perceptive change, was the crisis, the perfect storm, as I call it, that happened in 2022. A combination of bad policies, corruption, maladministration, bad governance, the Easter bombings of April 2019, which had a huge impact on tourism and their economy, and of course, Gotabaya Rajapaksa promoting organic farming and banning import of fertilizers. All that led to a crisis, which, as I said, was a perfect storm because the Sri Lankans weren't prepared for it. And they were going down under. We always used to think, and I served in Pakistan, so we used to always think that Pakistan is the basket case. Of course, the sick man of Europe, of Asia, sorry, on a drip, still is today. But Sri Lanka was the one that was going down. And who helped Sri Lanka? Pakistan has many benefactors. Sri Lanka didn't have any benefactors in March, April, May 2022. It was India that stepped up. India had already committed assistance of 2.5 to $3 billion before this crisis. And during the crisis in 22-23, we committed $4 billion. And this means not just grants and aid in terms of medicines and during COVID and after COVID, in terms of petroleum products, in terms of lines of credit, in terms of grants. I mean, I have a list of that, but I won't go into that again for positive time. But India stepped up to the plate. Even the friends, China, did not initially step up to the plate. It's only when India did. And it's not just that. India helped in their debt restructuring, which is still an ongoing process. India helped in them getting the extended finance facility, funding facility from the IMF, because we were prepared to take the lead. We took the lead in forming a creditors committee along with France and Japan, and helped them in terms of their debts restructuring with the uh, Paris group. So I think, sorry. So I think India has played a manifold role, not just in terms of providing immediate assistance as a first responder, which we have been for a long time. We were there in the tsunami too, but also helped us. This is something that I think we have not really, I wouldn't say publicize, it's a wrong word, but we've not really spread the word in Sri Lanka in particular, but even in India. People in India do not realize it, how much we've done for Sri Lanka. There is some references to it in reports, but Sri Lanka again is not in our neighborhood, especially us in the north. We are more occupied with Pakistan and Nepal, of course, Bangladesh. Sri Lanka seems slightly far removed. So I think it's very important that we, as a, I mean, I'm not part of the government anymore, but the government makes efforts to ensure that the people realize what we've done in Sri Lanka in particular, because there is something called ingratitude, and I will talk about that slightly later. And that is because of lack of knowledge too. And I think our job is to try and ensure that people know that ambulance service that was started during my time in 2016, a pilot project was launched. And it's a very interesting story how Prime Minister Modi, in his first visit in 2015 to Sri Lanka, he's been thrice. But 2015, the first visit, bilateral visit by an Indian Prime Minister after 28 years, to show the neglect that we had we'd gone for SARC meetings, etc., but there's not a bilateral visit. And it was a phenomenal success, of course, because of the personality of Prime Minister Modi, the aura that he was still not even 1 year in government, but everyone had heard of him in Sri Lanka, and the gestures that he made. He prayed at Anuradhapura with President Sirisena. I mean, that one visual actually went all over Sri Lanka, and people couldn't believe it that this is what was happening. And he emphasized the unity of our people in terms of even though our faiths being different, but we have a common purpose and how we're intertwined. So I think all that has had a very important role in the perceptions of India in Sri Lanka. And even though they look upon us as a big brother, sometimes as a bully, but I think we need to take a far more measured approach as far as they are concerned, but a far more consistent approach. Because in the past, we have sort of done a hands-on and then a hands-off policy, not just with Sri Lanka, but other neighbors too. Sometimes we feel that we've gone too far or there's a pushback from their side and we've withdrawn into our shell, which in my opinion is not the correct way to approach it. It needs to be sustained. Yes, there have to be nuances. You need to calibrate your policy towards Sri Lanka, but we need to be consistent. And we need to consistently reassure them that what we are doing is for our mutual interest. The connectivity issue, and I had this document, but I would advise you to read it. It's the vision document that was released in July 2023 when President Vikram Singh gave it. This is very aspirational. It's even the title is Promoting Connectivity, Strategizing Prosperity in the Sri Lanka Economic Partnership Vision. It's very aspirational, but yet it's very comprehensive. I mean, it has different sections about air connectivity, land connectivity, grid connectivity, cooperation in energy, increasing trade, investments, a whole gamut of, and of course, cultural exchanges, educational cooperation, etc. I understand just recently, Dani Green has got a contract for wind energy, two projects in Manar, which is a very good thing because the Chinese were taking that project earlier, but we stepped in. Adani, of course, is again there in the West Terminal after having lost the East Terminal, again because of machinations of people there. The Trincomalee tank farms, extremely important. Lanka IOC was struggling to maintain 14 of those tanks, and we are an important player. And now we're in agreement there. So there are a lot of positives that are emerging in our relationship. The problem is political uncertainty, because while we hopefully I will go to be a strong government, continuity after our elections. I cannot say that for Sri Lanka. They just announced presidential elections in September, October, followed by parliamentary elections. And it's important because the current president is most likely wanting to stand for re-election. He hasn't ever fought election. He became president just by chance. He lost, I think, twice, if I'm not mistaken, earlier, and by fortuitous circumstances, when Gotabaya Rajapaksa stepped down and Mahinda Rajapaksa stepped down, he became acting prime minister, then acting president, and president appointed by parliament. but he has all of one seat, his own seat, his party in the Sri Lankan Parliament of 225. He survives on the support of the Sri Lankan People's Party, SLPP, which again is the Mahinda Rajapaksa, the Rajapaksa family controlled party. I'm not sure how much control they have yet because now because they were extremely unpopular and they were the target of attack, including their family house in the southern Sri Lanka during the Araglia protest. So it is going to be very interesting to see how things emerge between now and the end of the year. The presidential elections, who are the other candidates? Premadasa's son is likely to be a candidate. He's the head of the second largest party, and there may be other candidates too. Anurag Dissanayake I don't call him a dark horse because right now he's the leading candidate, but JVP, which has been traditionally leftist nationalist anti-India, that has been their theme. I think the government of India did very well by inviting him recently and engaging with him because he could possibly be a president in the future. So I think there are imponderables, but we have to be prepared. And I think it's important that we engage all sections of, from the religious leaders, the Mahanayakas, to the people from different parties, even those who are known to be opposed to India. We must continue to engage them and we must monitor developers closely and always be ready to help in the time of need without expecting, and as Ambassador Gupta said, without expecting reciprocity in all cases. No, sometimes we must. Now, the China factor, though we should not look at India-Sri Lanka relations with the Chinese prism, but it is there for us to, I won't say counter, but to deal with. Because I remember when the Chinese submarine came there, I was there, and they repeated it 2 months later. So then we had to come down heavily on them. And then, of course, there were these research ships that came. Now there's a moratorium of 1 year. So we have to monitor what the Chinese are up to. And we need to draw our red lines, not in the sand, but very firmly. And our interlocutors must know that these are our red lines that they should not cross. And that way, I think it becomes easier for both sides to deal with each other. And the Sri Lankans, by and large, and I must say by and large, the last few years, especially after their Raglia protests, with Ranil Wickremesinghe back in power, they have been mindful of our concerns. There have been some irritants, and we do not have a veto. We must understand we cannot have a veto over Sri Lanka's relations with China or any other country. But as long as you spell out clearly your security concerns, uh, they they will understand. One last word, and that is economic integration. I think the future lies in economic integration. We have to be mindful of their concerns when you talk about a land bridge. The Adan Bridge, the Ram Setu, they immediately withdraw, not because of any religious association or any historical association, because they feel they will be overwhelmed by India and they will become the 29th or whatever, 30th province of India. So we have to reassure them that it is in their interest. And not just reassure them, we have to convince them that it's in their interest. Economic integration with India will be mutually beneficial, but it will definitely help them, particularly in that time of crisis which they are facing now. They have made some progress, but they could do much better if they were more closely integrated with India. I'll stop here. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I think very comprehensive coverage on uh, political security and economic issues. Um, Surely, India's assistance at a time when Sri Lanka was reeling under severe and most unprecedented economic crisis, I think is well recognized. Uh, just a few months ago, former President Shri Sena was here, and I was invited in a small group to meet him. And also conveyed appreciation for India's support. I think the issue of Tamil issue was an important issue, uh, which caused a lot of friction and issues between India and Sri Lanka, and it will remain so until Sri Lanka takes cognizant and sincere steps to fully integrate the Tamil community in the nation's economic, social, and political development. I remember when we were in IDSA, we took several delegations to. Ashok was together with me in those delegations. And the first delegation, 2006, in fact, it was not a government delegation, but a lot of European ambassadors, in fact, a delegation of European ambassadors sought a meeting with us. And they thought we were representing somehow unofficially the government of India. And they complained to us that, India must expose the Sri Lankan activity of how they were going after the Tamil population. Um, uh, we had connections with some people who were, uh, uh, you know, trying to speak on behalf of the Tamil groups, uh, and they had connections, and we conveyed to them very clearly that look, one is the issue of terrorism. The government of India, however perception that might have been that India was behind the creation of LTT, but in 2006 at least at that time, uh, you know, we had faced the depredations of terrorism. And particularly after our Prime Minister was assassinated, there was no question of India supporting LTT. So I conveyed this suggestion, you remember, to our friend that LTT must offer an unconditional apology for any involvement, perceived or otherwise, of the in Rajiv Gandhi's assassination, and completely abjure from whatever past deeds, but from the terrorism. And there, of course, the Tamil issue is close to our heart. We would not be comfortable. India would not be comfortable. And this is where whatever the government might do, there is also foreign policy is always also played out at the level of people. And people of India would never, uh, kind of empathize with any policy which is discriminative of the Tamil population. So I think Tamil population have to be brought fully on board, and this remains an issue. Uh, uh, I think at this stage we have Professor Kharat at the School of International Studies, JNU. Professor Kharat will take about 15 minutes to make a presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ambassador Virendra Gupta, sir, who is the president of ARSP, all the panelists and the guests, all the diplomats, ambassadors. Good afternoon once again. I would like to highlight India-Sri Lanka relations, not with the strategic or the economic relations, but mainly the cultural relations, or how India can improve our relations with Sri Lanka on the basis of the cultural proximities, or what are the ways. And these are my few observations based on my recent visit to Sri Lanka. I went for the field work because it was in Center for South Asian Studies where I'm teaching courses on the South Asia. Sri Lanka was one of the country where I went as a part of the JNU's assignment. So during my almost 2 to 3 weeks stay there, almost from Colombo to Hammalgota to Jaffna and all that, what I have seen, what I have observed, culturally, India and Sri Lanka, they are a very much mixed amalgamation of the cultural proximity is very much there. And we, as Indians, we're not able to cope up with that, or we're not going to respond them to the same extent what Sri Lanka has done or what they're doing. These are the few contentions I would like to highlight. One is, see, whenever you go to the Buddhist temples or all these visitors, Kandy or the Truth Relic Temple and all, I've seen many Tamilians from Batikola or the Jaffna, the school students, they are visiting purposefully. So it was not a cultural conflict because students at the age of 8th, 9th standard, with the school uniforms, they are visiting all the Buddhist temples in Sri Lanka. It's not only there, including the Anuradhapur. It's a huge crowd of these Tamilians. When we asked with that, so they said they are from Bataikola, they are from some other Tamil dominated area. And I was really happy to see that this kind of respect is there for each other's religion. It is the one. Secondly, near to Dambala, there is a big temple. Buddha temple is there, and almost my observations are there. Every Buddha temple has a small temple, which is a Hindu temple. It's not necessary. It is a Rama, Krishna, Shiva, all these things, but some kind of Hindu temple. Sometimes those temples are closed because it was afternoon or the deities are not there. People are not there who are to worship there. But these are my few impressions, which I think we should encash that. Because unless and until you go, as sir said, Ambassador Gupta sir said, see, people have to be considered when we are formulating our foreign policy, any policy, cultural diplomacy. Without that, without considering the people's ethos, their aspiration, we can't go ahead. We can't formulate or frame foreign policy. This is my one observation, which I would like to share here. As far as I also went to the Jaffna. Jaffna is very well known, not only because of the Tamil or because it's too far of the separatist, of the ethnic crisis and all that, but it is known for its food, different type of culture, and which is essentially is Hindu culture. Because the sizable population lives the Tamilians and they are the Hindus. Whether it's a Sri Lankan Tamils or the migrated Indian Tamils, those things I think we should not overlook. Because what the Colombo or the Sri Lankan people they have done in most of the commercial places, there is a dishes like food, Jaffna dish, this, whether it's a veg or non-veg and all that. So this cultural integration, the amalgamation within the Sri Lankan society is very well appreciated, and we should further this interest. We should take some initiatives from our side. Maybe like recently after the economy, because I went just only 5 or 6 months back there after the economic crisis. I think because of this economic crisis and the India's assistance, financially development, whatever the assistance given, the impression about the Indians, Indian policymakers, Indian government has risen to such a high level. They really respect a kind of God. The Indians are, or the Indian government has become like a God for them. And I have seen this not only the people who are from the villages, but also the monks in the various Buddhist monasteries. They are talking very high because what have they done? Whatever the assistance given by the Indians, it was not gone to a particular section or society. It has given to the monasteries, and monasteries they have taken the initiative and they have started distributing those dry rationing like a dal or rice and giving to the all these villages or to each family this much kg and all that. So those observations I thought such a high level of spirit for developing cordial relations with between India and Sri Lanka. We should encash. This is the second or third, whatever is there. Third, in the Dutch village, I have seen the most of the literature is available very much about the either Hindu literature or mythology. Even that hill station is there. Nuara Island. There is a one temple, Hindu temple, and then there is a one stamp like Hanumana came, Lord Hanumana came, and he put the foot there, and there is a big poster, big bracket is also there. People come and they take photograph. Nobody is allowed to go there, so that much respect is there. And opposite to that, that garden is also there. So you can see the Hanuman ka pair wahan pe laga hua hai, all these things, and people go and worship. All Buddhists go, jo bhi hai, whoever goes as a tourist, they go there and worship that. So this is a very good sign actually from Sri Lanka side, Sri Lankan society side, how they are respecting the other religion also. So it is not like a monolithic religion or a very like theocratic, though it is a theocratic state, but then it's not practically. It is very much about the inclusive society. So this is the one, and then I was talking about the Dutch village where I have seen the maximum publications which are there in Sinhala language, but about their own kings, or those kings who were in Tamilians, or those people who has how culturally they have connected all the gods, 15th century, 12th century, as Sir was Sinha Sir was saying, he was mentioning about that. But those are in either Tamilian language, Tamil language, or the Sinhala language. India should come forward, take those all the books, academic literature, bring to India or sit there only and translate into Hindi. क्या problem है? Or Sanskrit, at least Sanskrit, Hindi, both the language one can read it, and then you can go for the other regional languages so that we can understand how Sri Lanka was in thick and skin, very close, our dear heart to us. Okay, so these are the few things I thought I must mention here. because strategy, China and all these things, these are things, but I don't want to discuss because I want to discuss some positive things which I thought I have seen, and a lot of scope is there between the having the academic collaboration mainly. See, earlier in JNU, we used to have maximum students from Nepal. After Nepal, we used to have students from Sri Lanka, including some students from Maldives, Bhutan, Myanmar and all that. But I have not seen anybody from Sri Lanka who is coming and studying in JNU because we have separate quota for the SARC quota is there. But hardly Nepalis are also there because we are charging them in dollars. And dollars maybe some rich people can afford from the neighboring states. But Sri Lanka, I don't think after the economic crisis anybody can go. Maybe they are going to some other countries. Some students they might go to Maldives also because this is one observation where between Sri Lanka and Maldives, there is a very positive waves and wide variety of closeness, some sympathy, apathy, whatever it is there, but some sympathy is there. But India is a foremost as far as Sri Lanka is concerned. There, I think we should do something. We should take some initiative, bring the academic collaboration. I visited many universities there in Sri Lanka. They're asking first, who are you? Are you Buddhist or Hindu? Like that. And we'll have a discussion. Those are Hindu Tamilians. They always feel affinity. If he's a Hindu or Indian Hindu, then okay, we can open up. And they really open up. I can't tell all these things here, but then it's some kind of goodwill that we should bring it on the paper, research collaboration, research activities, how you can improve, how to contain the other enemies, how to improve the political culture. Because political culture of South Asia almost is similar. Whatever the political system they are following, whether it's a monarchy, democracy, or dictatorship, whatever it is there, start from the Bhutan to Pakistan. But political culture as a culture, it is similar because we are one as a culture unit that we should strengthen it. So these are the few challenges, few opportunities I thought between India-Sri Lanka relation. We must focus on that, and study should be carried forward either through the Antar Rashtriya Sahayog Parishad under the leadership of the chairperson sir or the Secretary General Shyam Parande sir, or those experts who are coming and delivering the lecture. These are the few things I thought I can share, and I'll stop here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much. I think very interesting point that you made about how in a pluralistic society, uh, multiple ethnicities, multiple religious configuration, how there is a lot of goodwill amongst people, and yet politicians, political groups find it so easy to create divisiveness. Uh, and I think Sri Lanka is another example of the same thing. It happens in many other countries. Uh, the divisions that you have, these are very deep divisions. And I think any political dispensation in Sri Lanka will have to deal uh, very sincerely with these issues and make, I mean, I come back to Tamils, make them feel as if they are like full members of the society, of the country, full citizenship, not second-class citizenship. In fact, when we went to Sri Lanka, I remember we were told by a lot of groups that came to meet us that how they were being discriminated against in the government jobs, in the economic opportunities, in so many different manners. Um, in fact, there was also a question of some markings or whatever, uh, kind of reminding you of what happened in the Second World War. That yes. So I think there are issues which one has to deal with. I will now request Dr. Ashok Bihuria, a senior fellow at the IDSA or Manohar Parikar IDSA, to make his presentation. 15 minutes, Ashok.
Thank you, sir. I think after it's difficult to speak after Ambassador Sinha because he has given you a snapshot of how this bilateral relationship has moved over time and where are we today. I can only say that 2022 has come as a spore. In fact, all of a sudden you find the political issues that had divided us for quite some time don't find any mention at the moment when you talk about India-Sri Lanka relationship. So that is very interesting, because earlier when you used to take up issues with the Sri Lankans, the Tamil issue or the ETCA issue used to come up in a big way, and they used to say that, as we talked about it, the hegemon, like, of course, people have talked about India as a reluctant hegemon. In fact, they say that, India has the ability to hegemonize the discourse in the region, but they hardly do that. In fact, Americans have said it. Many American scholars on South Asia have said it. But there is a deep, what do you say, seated bias against India in all our neighboring countries, including Sri Lanka, which we cannot wish away and which will always be there. And I think, as the biggest country in the region, we should get used to it, and that the issues will be there. But interestingly, after what we did in 2022, after the economic meltdown in Colombo, in Sri Lanka, I think the popular perception about India has undergone a change, a massive change. In fact, you no longer see the Rajapaksas, who used to be very, very anti-India in their uh, overtures. In fact, they would tell us that, we'll go by the 13th Amendment, but later on, they will come and say that, well, I had to say that what I said, but we're not going to abide by that. The kind of uh, nationalism that they were championing at one point of time I think it's out of fashion at the moment. This is this provides us with a window of opportunity which we need to, I think, exploit. Otherwise, I think I say uh, very soon we'll have a reversal to anti-India sentiment in Colombo. I will not be surprised. Uh, having said that, let us to find out how things have panned out during the last one decade, and especially after the Tamils were butchered, in a way that, unheard of in other parts of the world. In fact, we pretended that nothing is happening. That is also true. In fact, many intelligence officers who were there at that point of time in Colombo they told me that, we were not allowed to take steps to help out the Tamils. But that's a thing of the past. I think at the moment when this thing has happened, that, they are looking at us in a positive lens. They are now telling us that, well, you have really done wonders at that point of time. You have helped us, and that was not the way they were talking earlier. Pre 2022, in fact, we were in 2020 in BCIS in a bilateral dialogue. We had gone then earlier in 2006 and 2012. And in 2020, when we went, the same refrain was there, that you never helped us in taming the tigers, taming the Tamils. But now this has come about in a different way. In fact, we should be mindful of the change in the political dynamic in Sri Lanka. Gone are the days when the two parties, UNP and SLP, used to rule the roost. And both of them, SLFP started out as a party which had links with our ruling regimes at one point of time, but they also had their issues with us. UNP had their issues with us. After Indo-Lanka occurred, UNP moderated its stand on India. So these two political parties that were there, they are no longer dominant. SLFP has been, they wrecked from within, as they say. The Rajapaksas have come out with SLPP, and from UNP you have a SBP now. Or as Samaga Jana Balavaga, something that is people's power. So they have come out with they have come out of UNP, and that is a, in the last elections, if that is an indicator, in the last elections, SLPPs secured about 68.5 lakh votes. Uh,
course, looking at the Indian democracy and Indian population, it looks very small, but it is very big in Sri Lanka. Like in India, one MP represents about 27 lakh people. So in Sri Lanka, but that is quite a lot, 68 lakh rupees, 68.5 lakh votes. This SJP, the party that came out of UNP, secured about 22 lakh votes. Interestingly, the third party which was recognized as party which can an alliance. It was an alliance, NPP. They secured about 13 lakh votes, 12 to 13 lakh votes. And after that, fourth was the Tamils, two of the Tamils, and the Tamil National Alliance. Interestingly, the sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth in the list were all Tamils. So Tamils stand as divided as, the Madhesis of Nepal, perhaps, they are very, very divided amongst themselves. And if you add the Muslim Congress, even they're also Tamils. Well, the Tamils are also divided. You have plantation Tamils, you have Tamils of Jaffna, you have Tamils um, who are Muslims, you have Tamils who are also Christians. So there diversity within Tamils. And that is why, Tamils have not been able to pull through. EPDP is also there. They have also polled about 1 lakh something votes. TNA has polled about 2 lakh, more than that, 6 lakh some votes. UNP, which we used to dominate at one point of time, had secured only 2.5 lakh votes. As Ambassador Sinha said, is the only one who was elected, and he's the president now. He should be lucky, the way he has carried himself through. So, in that sense, the political dynamic has changed. Interestingly, the parties who were very anti-India, like NPP, it consists of JVP and JHU is also in the right. They have come together. They're nationalists. JVP leader had come to India in February, I think, and he made very good noise here. So that is really should be soothing to our ears, because they were the ones who were very anti-India. In 1987, when the Indo-Lanka Accord was signed, these people went out into the streets, and they abused us. So the JHU and this JVP, they have now also tried to catch up with India. The only party which is trying to reach out to us is the SJB, the party which has come out of UNP, which is Pramadasa. And Sajid Pramadasa, his father was killed by the Tamils at one point of time. Of course, that is controversial, but he was supposed to have been killed by the Tamils, LTTE. So Sajid Pramadasa is somebody who speaks Sinhalese. He's known as a leader of the masses. Unlike Ranil Wickramasinghe of UNP, who only can speak English, he cannot communicate in Sinhala as much. So this guy has popularity. Maybe he has future as well. So this is how the chessboard is uh, loaded at the moment. And not only that, Sajid Pramadasa has perhaps requested our government, because of the elections, perhaps he has not been here. Otherwise, post June he will be here. He wants to build bridges with India. So all the political parties that we see, major political forces in India and in Sri Lanka, they are trying to look towards India for help, guidance, and everything. And there is also an indication that they're not trying to muddy the waters too much as far as the Indian Ocean is concerned. In fact, they have denied the Chinese research vessels to come to anywhere near the territorial waters. So that means they're trying to respect our concerns. The red lines they don't want to cross. So this is, I would say, this is the ideal time for India to uh, you know advance its diplomatic what to say missions in a manner that we do not have a reversal of fortunes. I would say that right in the past, people used to bracket us with a particular party, a particular leader. I think we should avoid that. You know, I have always advocated it in our neighborhood as well, in most of my deliberations. Like we are a country of 140 crore people, 1.4 billion people. We should not be seen to be in bed with only one political party in a particular country. Like when it comes to Bangladesh, we are often seen as only Army League. Like in Sri Lanka, when people go there, they were trying to woo the Rajapaksas. That should not be the case. I think we are too big to be in bed with only one person or one party. I think we have n number of NGOs here, n number of research institutes here. Why can't we build a base where we can reach out to these political actors and political parties, and so that the vagaries of politics in these countries do not affect us. For example, we tomorrow, Rana Ghazda, if BNP were to stage a comeback with Jamaat in Bangladesh, who do we talk to? We don't know because we are only in bed with Army League. Like in Pakistan, for example, Imran Khan, we didn't know when he came to power. We had nobody to send to Imran Khan. But even if he was a cricketer, he had friends in uh, PCCI and all. And he was ideally sitting on the lap of the army. Uh, never before that. Knowledge, yeah. No, no. The point I'm making is, he made a lot of advances, sir. Before in October 2011, when for the first time the Pakistan Army organized a rally for him in Lahore, that was the indication that we could have seen it coming. In fact, in 2011, when I brought Salim Shehzad to uh, IDSA, Salim Shehzad came in the same CIA flight that brought Imran Khan to Kolkata. He came here, and from here he went to Kolkata to attend one of the BCCI meetings. Some meeting was there when he was invited. And when he saw that this guy was coming to IDSA, because IDSA is known in Pakistan as a country as an institute which is run by the RNW. I don't know how, but this is the way we look at it. But and he said, if you're going there, please sound it out. Huh? And he said, you sound it out. Yes, sound it out, and I would like to be there, talk to them. So that is the way people would like to also build bridges with different factions within your country. So, having said that, I would say that to come back to Sri Lanka, I think this is an opportunity that we should not miss. The second point that I want to make is that Sir said that about Eastern Terminal that didn't occur to us. I think it is not because of the politics alone. It is also because of delivery deficit. Like we didn't do anything for the past 1.5 years. And the Sri Lankans were constantly telling us, please do something, please do something. When 2020 we went there, where the Port Trust Authority chairman, I must be knowing him there, he hosted us. And I will go down on my bended knees. Please do something about it. We would like you to come. If you don't, then you'll have all these things coming up. If people are, talking against, India's non-performance. Uh, Compared to that, we must realize that, all the countries in our neighborhood, the people in our neighborhood, they have huge aspirations, developmental aspirations. And we perhaps do not have the purse, or I think the capability to cater to their needs. We need to study that, and that is why when you don't you sir, no, you are not there. 2009 when we went there, 2010 we went there. We were taken to Jaffna, sir, and all these housing societies that we were trying to build for the people who were displaced, they were in a very bad state. We didn't know how to operationalize it on the ground, and it took a lot of time. Huh? A lot of time. Of course, there were internal issues. They would not give you land.
2010,
Huh?
but in 2015,
Huh?
that we were nominated for an award.
Yes, later.
We copied the push model,
Huh?
quick model, brought it to Sri Lanka, and we built 50,000.
I'm just coming down. 2000, when by 2014, things had changed. But we took a lot of time to reach there. And people think that we are lazy, we don't do it. Like A9, the Chinese built it within a few months. And the railway line that we from Colombo to Jaffna took so many uh, months and so many years. So the delivery deficit should be addressed, in all our engagements, because we are building houses again. And also, in addition to that, in Manar, we are also in bed with them for building this what is that, hybrid renewable energy grid, terminals. So we need to be open doing as far as our performance is concerned, and that is something that will take us forward. Third thing, this ETCA and all, we have now a partnership agreement, which perhaps kind of takes care of the Indian concerns about them not signing the ETCA. We have a free trade agreement. I think we should be happy with that and move forward and try to also, bring our private players there in terms of our investment and all. Because investment wise, between 2005 and 2020, I was looking at the data. We have only managed to invest about $1.7 billion, $1.9 billion. Not that great. So we need to also factor in that. Like, we couldn't go to Afghanistan even if we signed the Hajigak. Of course, because of security reasons, we couldn't build Gwadar also, even if they were open to the idea of India doing it all. So that delivery deficit has to be taken care of in a big way, so that only we will retain their goodwill. And I entirely agree with both the ambassadors on our anxiety about China. The anxiety about China will remain, but we need to find out a way of dealing with the political parties, political groups, pressure groups within different countries, and create our constituency in most of these societies. Like, for example, in Bangladesh, another example, you know, I'm associated with another think tank which sent out five people in five different directions in Bangladesh on the eve of the elections. They all came out with very interesting findings. They said that China has managed to generate so much goodwill, by completing projects in time, by building roads, and yeah, and they have promised to bring in about $24 billion investment in Bangladesh at the moment. So we should not be worried about that, because the kind of cultural linkages that we have, the kind of historical association we have, that will die hard. And rather than expressing your anxiety in a very awkward manner, we should be dealing with them in a manner befitting a regional hegemon, as we are known as in the subcontinent. Thank you.
I think you're spot on insofar as India's relationship with the neighbors, and particularly keeping, whether it's China or European Western countries. I remember with regard to Nepal, actually, it was always a red rag for us. And you're right, actually, the countries are aspirational, not just aspirational, their requirement for reconstruction development is so huge that India cannot meet all the requirement. I would say India cannot meet even half of the requirement. So I think money has to necessarily come from elsewhere, unless we take active effort, we make active effort to block it. And if we try to block it, or if we create even an impression to block it, then I think it'll create a lot of resentment and misgivings, which is what may be happening at the moment. Um, I think you also raised a very important point about changing political dynamics and how the post 22, India's massive help and timely help. And India was the only country which provided that kind of help. It has changed the perception of, uh, you know, political groups across the spectrum. And I think that provides us a unique opportunity. A very important point that you made about that India, and this is a mistake that we've been making, all across our neighborhood, that India is a large country, and India should be dignified enough and patient enough to understand that India's long-term interests are not served by aligning with a specific one political group or one political party. So I think India should keep its options open and should give a genuine and sincere, uh, message of wanting to help and wanting to create uh, well and well-being in those countries. Because if we somehow create an impression that political stability and economic well-being is is in our long-term interest, and our neighbors must understand that India will work towards achieving that objective. Uh, we have now Ambassador Dayaker, who's a very senior member of Antar Rashtriya Sahayog Parishad. We featured Ambassador Dayaker in this small roundtable discussion because I will always believe, and I think Ministry of External Affairs has begun to pay serious attention to this, that when we deal with our neighbors, we must bring in the point of view of people living in India in that neighborhood. So, for instance, if we talk about India's relationship with Nepal, what do people in Bihar and UP think about that relationship should be factored in to determination that is really taking people's will into account. Ambassador Dayakar is from South India, and I think he will certainly have a very interesting perception to share with us on how we should deal with Sri Lanka. So, Ambassador Dayakar.
Is this right? Can you hear me?
Yes, it is.
It's there. I think most of would have heard of the name of Prasad Karyavasam. He is a very distinguished Sri Lankan diplomat, their foreign secretary ambassador in Washington, and he has done 2 stints in India. I happen to know him, not closely, but listen to him, both when he was Deputy High Commissioner and came back as High Commissioner. He used to say very candidly, which I thought which was a little very unlikely of a diplomat to say, that Sri Lanka's majority is a majority with a minority complex. Majority of the people, Sri Lankans, they have a minority complex. That means their sense of persecution, their sense of deprivation, and so on and so forth. And of course, Tamils themselves are certified minorities, not to say that one. But he would not go beyond that, saying what is the cause of that minority complex of the majority. It is understood. That's India. India and Tamils. He didn't say that one. There is a series of actions to create that impression. 1983, as mentioned. Of course, it was a reaction. So I think they were trained here in some jungles, and India Today carried the stories. Then 87, the act and dropping the food there, and so on. This one, and then the amendment, 13th constitutional amendment, devolution, those things. So obviously, that has come from the outside inspiration to the minorities, for the benefit of the minorities, Tamils. And that only makes the gulf deeper between the two. Of course, there are also others in the Tamil politicians keep on feeding the fears of Sri Lankan followers. There is a man called Vaigo used to be there. Vayapuri Gopal Swami. Vaigo. He is a loudmouth. He was put in jail because he crossed into Sri Lanka to help some LTTE without passport, without visa. He was in jail. It carries it a badge of honor to have violated sovereignty. And when LTTE was in trouble in 2009, he said there will be a bloodbath in Tamil Nadu if Prabhakaran is. But nothing came. And Vaigo is there. So what's happening is that this Tamil support or Tamil sentiments, Tamil Nadu to the Tamils of Sri Lanka is exaggerated, overstated. Of course, there is genuine sympathy if there is violation of human rights and so on, but not for Elam, not for LTT. In fact, when Rajiv Gandhi was killed, there were riots against DMK and so on, Tamil Nadu. Sporadic though, but attacking. It was and the LTT also, the refuse, of course, not hate because there is no entity. So there is this kind of realities or not, that the perceptions created by Tamil politicians creates there. And this creates insecurities, deepens,
in the majority. We have long history, people have said and so on. The Sri Lankan Sinhalese came from India, means Vijaya, 2,500 years. Then there was also during Vijayanagar Empire, which was mentioned in one of his earlier, right? In WhatsApp group, the Nayak kings of Tanjore and Madurai had with the matrimonial alliances with the Kandy kings. The whatever the names are there. So this has been long going on. So what is needed is, you see, we talk about civilizational links, very right. But civilization link, there is a deep inner contradiction between talking about civilization links and also look at transactional treatment, relations. You can make an exception to security deadlines. There's no security. But you talk about Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam also, and then civilization links, and then say, look, we are doing it. What are you doing for us? Nepal, with everyone, etc. And the relations with Sri Lanka are much different from Madeshis of Nepal or Bangladesh water issues and etc. It is going to be there. And it is, Rajiv Gandhi was a victim of both Tamil and Sri Lankan hatred. You know that when he, Sinhalese hatred, when he went on a state visit after the thing, one of in the guard of honor, one naval rating hit him on the head. You don't even aware of. Yes. The shoulder. It was a sheer luck that it hit the shoulder because it had the thing. Otherwise, it would have been fatal. And 4 years later, Tamils took their thing. So that shows the complexity. You can't please both of them. It's to use the word zero sum game does not apply. So it is very carefully to be done, these relations. And 2013 there was a Commonwealth summit, Chogam. India refused to go there, although it's multilateral grouping, nothing to do with the bilateral thing, as a protest against treatment of rights, the human rights of the Tamils. But all changed in 2014 June. Rajapaksa was invited along with all the SAARC leaders for swearing-in ceremony. And the following year, Prime Minister went there, as I said, first in 20 years. So things moved. So Tamil issue is no longer is still there. Contents and etc. Devolution, they have to be persuaded, but not the decisive factor, in my view. The government has made it clear. And and Sagar, mentioned also Sagar. Security and growth for all in the region. That covers Sri Lanka and etc. Security and growth. No, I think these policies now are more realistic. India's interests are at the core, and we have wonderful foreign ministry experience with Southern Sri Lanka and all. So I think the future seems to be bright. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Dayaker, for giving us this perspective and for sounding a hopeful note. Although one has to be careful to prevent a slide down, it happens all the time. It is cyclical. We have managed to pump in the kind of funds that we did. Whether or not we will be able to sustain that stuff. And mind you, other countries will also work against our interests. So I think this leads to an evolution. And I think our biggest challenge would be to prevent a slide down in the future. I think it is very encouraging to hear from you that Tamil issue may not play much of an irritant in India-Sri Lanka relationship. But I think the fact remains that if Sri Lanka wants to optimize its economic development, a very important section, a minority in the country cannot be left unintegrated. I think they have to be made to feel as if they were fully a part of the economic process. So at this stage, I think our last speaker, Shri Ashok Kantha, a researcher who spent many years in Sri Lanka. Very briefly, sir, for about 10 minutes. You can reflect on the cultural and civilizational links between, although other speakers have also briefly alluded to that, but I think you take.
थैंक यू वेरी मच सर। एंड मेरे को बहुत खुशी हुआ आज कि आज श्रीलंका का मैटर है, इसमें सिन्हा साहब हमारे साथ में हैं, दियाकर जी हैं हमारे साथ में। तो मैं आज जो गवर्नमेंट पॉलिसीज है और जो डिप्लोमेटिक पॉलिसी चलती है दूसरे क्रॉस द कंट्रीज चलता है, इसमें एक नया अध्याय जोड़ा है मोदी साहब ने आने के बाद कि रिलीजियस लिंक्स, धार्मिक जो लिंक्स हैं हमारे, धार्मिक रूट्स हैं, इनके बारे में हम लोग चर्चा, आज एक नया विषय है और आपको कुछ अनुभव नया भी होगा इसके साथ में कि कैसे मैं वहां गया। मैं 2004 में श्रीलंका में गया। फर्स्ट मेरा जो था टारगेट अशोक वाटिका में, जैसे सर ने जिक्र किया कि वहां पर स्टोन में एक मार्क है, उस टेम्पल्स को मैं 2004 में चंद्रशेखर जो राधा कृष्ण जी हैं और राधा मुथु शिवलिंगम है, तो मेरा जो फर्स्ट जो वहाँ था, उसमें एक सामने होटल हुआ करता था, वहाँ होटल को लेके, और देखिए कैसा अनुभव हुआ जब मैंने वहाँ होटल लिया। तो हमारे जनरल सेक्रेटरी वहाँ आए पहले, और उसके बाद में 2004 में मैं जब श्रीलंका से इंडिया आया, तब अशोक वाटिका का एक कंसेप्ट लेके आया। तो उसमें अंबिका सोनी जी थे जहाँ पर। 2004 से 5 और 6, 2006 तक मैं इंडिविजुअली निजी तौर पे अपने पे रिसर्च करता रहा, और फिर लकीली 2005 में बालेश्वर जी के साथ मेरा लिंक हुआ। उस समय हमारा जो ऑफिस हुआ करता था भगत सिंह मार्केट में हुआ करता था। तो उस समय की, देखिए, एक जब किसी को थोड़ा सा सपोर्ट मिलता है या लिंक कोई मिलता है, तो देखिए कितना हिस्टोरिकल वो एक मूवमेंट बन जाता है। हमारे पास में पंडारा रोड में बाबूजी रहा करते थे, तो पंडारा रोड में एक विद्यासागर जी हुए हैं, फूड ऑफिसर, फूड सिक्योरिटी पर्संस थे। तो उनके पास में एक हैंडराइटिंग बुक्स था विद्यासागर जी का। तो पंडारा रोड में जब मैं गया, तो रात को 2 बज गए ढूंढते ढूंढते कि अशोक वो तेरे काम आएगा। मैं ढूंढा, उस बुक के अंदर में 32 प्लेसेस जो रामायण के रिलेटेड थी, उसके अंदर में जिक्र था विद्यासागर जी का। तो वो एक मैं बुक्स लेके, मेरा एक हिस्टोरिकल लिंक्स था। वो निरुपमा राव जी थे वहां पर एम्बेसडर, तो हम लोगों ने एक कमेटी बनाया जिसमें बेसिल राजपक्षे जो फॉरेन मिनिस्टर थे और टूरिज्म मिनिस्टर थे, और फैसर मुस्तफा जो नुवारा एलिया से डिप्टी मिनिस्टर थे, एस क्लाई सेल्वम एक हिंदू जेंटलमैन जो डायरेक्टर जनरल टूरिज्म थे। देखिए आज कैसा अनुभव है, मेरा जो ऑफिस है वो 80 गर्ल रोड है, सर के ऑफिस के पास बिल्कुल एक बिल्डिंग छोड़ के 52 नंबर इंडियन एम्बेसी है, उसके बाद गोल रोड शुरू हो जाता है, गोल फेस। और गोल फेस जो होटल है, उसका आपने भी सर देखा होगा कि उसके आउटसाइड पे एक पेंटिंग बना हुआ है जिसमें पुष्पक विमान को सीता माता जी को लेके आते हुए रावण को दिखाया गया। तो मेरा वही था कि ये अ, अंतर्राष्ट्रीय सहयोग परिषद ने मेरे को सपोर्ट किया। अटल बिहारी वाजपेयी जी को एक लेटर लिखा, ये तीनों लेटर हैं। केदारनाथ साहनी जी को लेटर लिखा, एक अशोक सिंघल जी को लेटर लिखा कि आप इनको सपोर्ट कीजिए। तो उनकी सपोर्ट के बदले मेरे को अशोक सिंघल जी ने लेटर लिख के भेजा कि वहां पर आपको 2 आदमी सपोर्ट करेंगे, स्वामी विज्ञानानंद जी कार्तिक टेम्पल से, जो सर ने जिक्र किया। तो उसके बाद में अशोक वाटिका टेम्पल्स में डेवलपमेंट हुआ। अशोक वाटिका जो एरिया है सर, मैं तो पूरा रिलीजियस 20 साल से वहीं स्टडी कर रहा हूँ। ये 12 जोजन का एरिया है अशोक वाटिका का जो एरिया है एंटायर। जैसे हगला गार्डन सर ने बोला, हगला मीन्स क्या है, जब तक आप ना लोकल लैंग्वेज में नहीं जानेंगे। मैं एक बीइंग ए पंजाबी, आई नो सिंगलाज, आई नो लिटिल तमिल, एंड सेकंड जो लैंग्वेज है मेरा वो अरबिक है। अरबिक लैंग्वेज है स्टडी, जो मेरा इजिप्ट में मैंने स्टडी किया अलस्कंदरिया यूनिवर्सिटी में। तो मैं जब लेके तो जब मैं लेके तो जब मैं लेके गया ये सब मैटर्स, तो उसके बाद में एक जो कमेटी बना, उसके उन्होंने अप्रूवल दिया कि अशोक यू गो फॉरवर्ड, ये जो बुक्स आप लेके आए हैं इसका ट्रांसलेट कीजिए हिंदी में, इंग्लिश में, संस्कृत में, सिंगला में और तमिल में। वो आज भी गजट में हमारे श्रीलंकन टूरिज्म डिपार्टमेंट में पड़ी है, जो 32 प्लेसेस की थी। फिर हमारे पास में एक गांव है वहां पर पुलस्त्योपुरम। तुलसीपुरम, जिसको पोलोनरुआ बोलते हैं, 40 फीट जाके नीचे, 50 फीट नीचे जाके पूरा सिविलाइजेशन मिला। तो मतलब ये कभी कभी कोई काम करते, जैसे आज सारी सरकारी जितनी पॉलिसीज है, क्या इकोनॉमी होनी चाहिए, तो आप लोग तो सर हमारे कमांडिंग पोजीशन में है, लेकिन आपकी कमांडिंग पोजीशन में कोई ऐसा भी काम होता है पैरेलल्स में कि रिलीजियस लिंक्स है। जैसे मैं रिलीजियस लिंक्स आपको बताऊं कि श्रीलंका के साथ में हमारे रिलीजियस लिंक रामायण के समय से, राम सेतु, राम सेतु की जो मूवी बनी है उसमें जो आर्यन का रोल किया है वो मेरी ऑटोबायोग्राफी, जो राम सेतु की मूवी बनी है। जो नुसरत भरूचा का जो रोल किया है, मेरी वाइफ का नाम आशा है, उसके साथ में जो रोल किया है। राम सेतु का जो नीचे जाके जितना भी, जब आप गए थे मोदी साहब को लेके, उसमें मैं हेलीकॉप्टर में था जब हम लोग मन्नार में फर्स्ट टाइम रेलवे का प्रोजेक्ट शुरू किया था 2015 में। उसके बाद फिर आगे 3 आदमी थे उस बैठने वाले, तो उसके साथ में जब मैं मोदी साहब को उंगली पकड़ के जब राम सेतु के ऊपर लेके गया, तो उसके बाद में सरस्वती यूनिवर्सिटी जाफना में जो किसी समय डिस्ट्रॉय कर दी गई थी, तो मोदी साहब ने उसको रेनोवेट किया। उसके बाद आज कार्तिकेयन जी हैं हमारे जाफना में, तो उनके साथ एक पहला हमारा, आज मैं लकीली इधर आया हुआ था आज, इसलिए चर्चा हो गया कि बहुत बड़ा ग्रुप एक जा रहा है 2024 का बहुत बड़ा जो ग्रुप है, 108 डिग्निटीज जा रहे हैं, जिसमें मेन जज भी जा रहे हैं। तो अजय भैया जी के साथ में, इसीलिए ग्रुप के वो करने के लिए मैं इधर था। तो आज टी एन मल्होत्रा जी 2008 में मेरे पास आए थे, डगलस देवानंद जो थे उस समय, उनके साथ मीट कराई थी। तो ये है सारा रिलीजियस लिंक्स में। ये बताता हूँ, पहले रामायण का लिंक्स है, उसके बाद में रामायण के लिंक के बाद महाभारत के अंदर में एक आती है कि बृहदल को युधिष्ठिर जी ने भेजा, जो विभीषण के जो डिसेंडेंट थे, उनको आप किसके तरफ लड़ेंगे, हमारी तरफ या कौरवों की तरफ लड़ेंगे। ये भी महाभारत के अंदर है। बृहदल जो उस समय का राजा था। थर्ड जो है उसके महाभारत के बाद में 3 टाइम जिक्र आता है कि महात्मा बुद्ध श्रीलंका में गए, कुछ कुछ बुक्स में लिखा है, दर्ज किया है। उसके बाद में संघमित्रा का और महेंद्रा का, ये तो, और संघमित्रा जी हेमा के साथ में वहां गए हैं, अनुराधपुरा में, महियांगना में गए हैं। ये कहाँ से गए? उसके बाद में अभी आज चर्चा हो रही थी कि लेटेस्ट जो है, जब मैं रामायण की चर्चा करता था, रामायण के बाद में जो लेटेस्ट रिसर्च आई सामने, सतमंगला करना रत्ना जी आर्कियोलॉजिस्ट हुए हैं लंका के अंदर में, तो उन्होंने एक लेटर लिखा 23 अक्टूबर 1969 में पंजाबी यूनिवर्सिटी के नाम। तो उन्होंने बोला कि गुरु नानक वहां पर 2 बैसाखीज वहां पर गुजारे हैं। बीइंग ए पंजाबी, फिर मेरे को एसजीपीसी ने अपॉइंट किया, हमारी 5 जो बीसी हैं उनको अपॉइंट किया। जसपाल सिंह जी हैं हमारे, जेएस गरेवाल है, इंदू बांगा है, तो और उसके बाद जेएस गरेवाल, इंदू बांगा हार्वर्ड यूनिवर्सिटी से, कैलिफोर्निया यूनिवर्सिटी से, और हमारे जो 5 बीसी हैं उनको फिर मैं हेड ऑफ द डिपार्टमेंट बना के गवर्नमेंट से परमिशन लेके बना। तो वहां बेटिकुला में एक गांव का नाम है गुरुकुल मडम, बेटिकुला से 22 किलोमीटर। आज वहां पर पहला गुरुद्वारा भी वहां पर बन गया है। तो ये होते हैं कुछ प्रयास, जो सरकारी प्रयास आप करते रहते हैं। बीच बीच में कोई हमारा भी लिंक्स ऐसा होता है कि छोटे छोटे प्रयास कभी कभी एक मंजिल बन जाते हैं। आज आपको ये जिक्र करते हुए खुशी होगी कि हमारे जो रामायण के 7 कांड हैं, उनमें से 2 कांड, जो सुंदर कांड और युद्ध कांड, दे आर ऑल हैपन इन श्रीलंका। और मैं एचटी के अंदर में एक 2006 में एक आर्टिकल लिखा था राहुल महाजन के साथ में कि ऑस्ट्रेलिया इज द पार्ट ऑफ लंका। आज मेरे को रिकॉग्नाइजेशन मिल गया 21 में कि लंका का सचमुच पार्ट था ऑस्ट्रेलिया, और इसको अंद्रालय बोलते थे। और अंद्रालय के बाद जब थोड़ा सा प्रोनाउंसिएशन इंग्लिश में चेंज हो जाता है, तो इसका नाम ऑस्ट्रेलिया का ऑस्ट्रेलेशिया बना, क्योंकि सोमाली, माली और माल्यावन तीनों जब भूमिगत हो गए थे, तो वो तीनों ने वहां रह के स्टडी किया। उसके बाद में फिर वहां पर लिंक करके लंका में आए। तो ये लिंक्स है, ऐसे ऐसे लिंक्स है। मेरे को आज जो मौका मिला, सिर्फ इसलिए आपका नजर इसलिए दिलाना चाह रहा था कि ये जो हमारे लिंक्स हैं, उन रूट्स को भी देखिए। आज अशोक वाटिका के अंदर पहले कोई नहीं जाता था, कोई नहीं जानता था। अशोक वाटिका के बाद में एक छोटा सा मंदिर है, अग्नि परीक्षा, देवरम पुला जगह है का नाम है, वैली मडक को जाते हुए देवरम पुला का नाम है। देवरम पुला को हमने बुद्धिस्ट से जगह लेके आपको मालूम है सर, शिवराज चौहान जी आया था, दे आर गिवन टू 10 करोड़ रुपीज फॉर मी, देन आई एम द ट्रस्टी फॉर दैट टेम्पल्स। तो उस छोटे से टेम्पल्स के अंदर में आपको सब मालूम है पहले क्या कुछ था वहां पर, क्या कुछ डेवलपमेंट हो रहा। तो ये उस समय हो रहा था जब मैं 2004 में सर गया, इनको मल्ली जाना, तो वन ऑफ द डे यू आर स्पेंडिंग, एक दिन लगता था सर। एवरी किलोमीटर देयर इज ए चेक पोस्ट, एवरी किलोमीटर, बहुत डिफिकल्ट टास्क था। तो आज तो बहुत आपके संबंध जो हैं बहुत डेवलपमेंट हो गए हैं, चाहे कुछ भी है। जैसे राजेश सर ने, प्रोफेसर राजेश सर ने बोला कि जेएनयू को भी आप चांस दीजिए। मैं नोट किया सर, ये बहुत सारे स्टूडेंट्स हैं, जैसे मेरे पास बहुत बच्चे हैं जो पीएचडी कर रहे हैं रामायण के ऊपर, और बीच में से 16 जो बच्चे हैं वो मुस्लिम्स हैं, पीएचडी कर रहे हैं रामायण के ऊपर। तो और भी सर देखिए, क्या कुछ लिंक्स ऐसे हैं जो बहुत ज्यादा डेवलप, आपकी हेल्प चाहिए वहां पर लंका के अंदर में। इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर देखिए, कितना बुरा टाइम हमने देखा, कितना बुरा टाइम। मेरे को तो पता नहीं चलता था कि ये लंका इतना अच्छा एनवायरमेंटली, इतना नीट एंड क्लीन कंट्री एकदम ऐसा हो जाएगा, कोई सोचा भी नहीं था। लेकिन ये सब हिस्सा है, कुछ लोगों की ऐसे रहती है कोशिश, प्रयास होते रहते हैं दूसरी कंट्री को डिस्टर्ब करने के लिए। तो आज आपकी अध्यक्षता में बोलने का मौका मिला, थैंक यू वेरी मच सर, कीप इट अप, थैंक यू।
उतना हम लोगों को नॉलेज नहीं थी। तो ये बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट डायमेंशन है, कल्चरल लिंक्स, और अपनी रामायण से जुड़े हैं, रिलीजियस लिंक्स हैं। और लोगों को पता चले तो, जो इंडिया से श्रीलंका बहुत लोग जाते हैं, अशोक वाटिका अगर डेवलप हो जाए तो, और हो रही है जैसे, जी हाँ, कई लोगों को इंटरेस्ट होगा कि जाके देखें वहां पे कैसा है, तो उससे तो संबंध बढ़ेंगे, और ये बड़ी अच्छी डायमेंशन है।
जब 16 में थे उसमें एक रोड पास किया नोवारालिया से लेके वैली मड़ा तक, आपने ही क्वेश्चन कि महेंद्रा जी को बताया, और महेंद्रा ने मेरे ख्याल 4 महीने के अंदर भी ये रोड 22 किलोमीटर का पूरा
Yeah. अब हम 10-15 मिनट के लिए कोई अगर क्वेश्चंस पूछना चाहें, या कोई कमेंट करना चाहें, कोई ऑब्जर्वेशन, यस अमित।
Thank you very much for the opportunity, sir. Thank you. And of course, I have to present a vote of thanks later, but my sincere compliments to all the presenters and speakers for their deliberations. My humble query is to Ambassador Sinha, sir, is what progress has been made in implementing multimodal distribution line? One. And then you mentioned about the vision statement, and you have very rightly mentioned that election has been announced in Sri Lanka. So that vision statement in perspective to progress in implementation, there has been almost 9 months now, so there could have been some implementations as well. And how do you foresee that happening in due course of time? And lastly, about the special economic zone, my question is to Dr. Bihuria, please. As we were discussing earlier, Sri Lanka has announced some special economic zones there, and it is proposed, sorry, that a lot of investment would come from India, especially the southern part of India. So your comments on special economic zone, and of course, sir, about the connectivity. Like India has started ferry connections as well, restarted it, the ferry connections, and a very recent announcement of Chennai to Jaffna aviation has taken place, some about 6 or 7 months back. So how do you foresee that in due course of time, sir? Thank you.
मनन आप पूछिए। मनन द्विवेदी इंडियन इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ पब्लिक एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन में है, और खासकर अमेरिका पे काम करते हैं ये मनन। आइए, मनन पूछिए आप।
I have this humble query to Ambassador Yashvardhan only. What I personally feel is that I normally work on the sphere of I have just two brief queries which can be sorted out. First of all, as we all know that our Prime Minister has been going ahead talking about cosmopolitanism, which happens to be some sort of a reprieve or an improvement over the 2014 agenda of nationalism, then the question that non-Sri Lanka observers in IR have faced is that why do regional concerns or why do localized concerns have such a great impact upon bilateral relations or trysts? Like whenever we talk about the Sri Lankan theme, we talk about Tamils, we talk about the domestic political scenario in Tamil Nadu. This is one. It's not a comment, sir. It's just a query as a lay person as far as Sri Lanka studies are concerned. And secondly, as Ashok Bihuria sir very nicely pointed out, benign hegemon. It was Professor L.G. Muni who used to tell us that we are still a hegemon. And so, as Mr. Virendra Gupta sir also said, we still need to do enough. Not even 50% of cohabitation has been achieved between Colombo and New Delhi. So I would like to have your erudite comment. Thank you.
Any other? Rajiv?
Yeah.
एक साथ ही ले लेते हैं सर.
Sure. Thank you for the thought. Pratik. I see it from travel point.
Rajiv is a management consultant, a new member of our.
Yeah, thank you. In fact, this is my second participation. So happy to be here. My query is about the travel part. We talk a lot about the Shanigan visa taking to different countries together, and now Thailand is leading the way. Here in 5 countries like Cambodia, Laos, Malaysia, and Burma, and Thailand want to travel into. Do you see a possibility where India, Sri Lanka, Bhutan, all this kind of bouquet visas could come that people could travel because there's a huge potential just there.
Yeah.
First, to respond to your, should I take this? Sorry. Amit, to respond to your first query, multimodal links. Now, I don't represent the ministry and I retired from the ministry 6 years ago, 5.5. So I'm not in the position to give you the latest position on that. But the multimodal links will only develop when there is, I presume you're referring to the links between distribution lines. I'm afraid are you talking about what sort of distribution lines are these?
There are multiple distribution lines that you go, it is especially with reference to the oil prices.
Okay, so I understood. Okay, so basically energy nature. So the energy links, now the vision statement talks about those energy links. The energy links have not materialized for a variety of factors. If I can go back first to power, thermal energy. The thermal power plant of NTPC in Sampur was actually the Sirisena government, whom were very well disposed towards, the first cancelled that thing because of environmental concerns. आपने कहा वो क्या पोलोनोरुआ का जो पुराना मैं गया हुआ वहां पे वो श्री सिन्हा साहब का खास जगह उनका कंसर्न ये था कि अगर आप सामपुर में थर्मल पोल प्लांट लगाएंगे तो जो पोल्यूशन जो होगा उससे जो वो अपर विंड पाथ पे पोलोनोरुआ को खराब करेगा. उनको किसी ने बोल दिया, कोई साइंटिफिक एक्सप्लेनेशन था, काफी दूर है, आप देखें शामपुर से तो बहुत दूर है पोलोनोरुआ, but that was the sort of, these are the sort of vested interests who spoke against that sort of thing. Now we are looking at what? That same Sampur, we are looking at a solar energy plant. Now when they cancelled the thermal power plant, if I remember 2 into 500 megawatt, they then gave us something in Kevarapitia, outside Colombo. Yeah. They said, you build something there for LNG. And they even talked about pipelines connected from Kerala. Those are all when I was leaving around that time. But it didn't materialize simply because these have remained on paper and these were suggestions made without any thinking through. However, the vision document which I referred to talks about links, grid connectivity. It talks about solar energy and wind energy, and where the private sector has to step up because the government would find it difficult. Now, these are all in a very nascent stage. Unless there is a political will, especially on their side. But I'd just like to point out, for the grid connectivity, we were having a problem. Our government in Tamil Nadu, the state government at that time, the late Jayalalitha ji, she objected. So we couldn't even have a study done to the grid connectivity. Similarly, the ferry service, the sea connectivity from Talai Manar to Rameshwaram, even that we couldn't. Now we've started it, but their objections have, because of their objections. So I think it's linked to your next question regarding, I think you talked about local concerns and domestic concerns. So unless we are able to carry those states which have a stake in the relationship between that neighboring country, in this case Tamil Nadu, Sri Lanka, unless we carry them with us, it will be very difficult to, of course, we have to carry the host government, the Sri Lankan government, but first we should do our homework within. So these ideas of grid connectivity were very good, and I think it is in the best interest. In fact, connectivity as a whole would be in the best interest of both the countries. But we have to prepare the ground for it. We have to prepare the public for it. And I just give you an example. A few days ago, you might have read in the papers that there was an incident at Katnaik Airport, at the Colombo Airport, where I noted it down. A gentleman called Sanduru Kumarasinghe created a ruckus because he said that the visa system was done by India. And why should India be allowed to do it? Which is completely incorrect. Somebody had obviously misinformed him, or he had labored under a misperception. It was done by a Swedish company, and I think it was a joint venture, 2 or 3 companies. But India was being blamed. Now, absolutely unfairly, but India was being blamed. So, unless you correct the perceptions there, that we are not here to overwhelm you. For instance, my time, they was said that if we find the ECPA that you talked about, there was a big thing at that time again. Professor Pires, who had actually supported it, went against it when he was opposition. And the reason was, and the Indian doctors who were working in some hospitals there, Lanka Hospital and one more private hospital, they were leaving because they were being told that you are taking away our jobs. But the problem was that they didn't have qualified people. And whatever qualified people they had at that time were migrating to the Gulf or to the UK or to Europe or Australia. So these misperceptions have to be cleared. But I think it's important to take into account the concerns of the that bordering that country. However, that does not mean that we should give a veto to them over bilateral relations. Unfortunately, in the past, somebody mentioned about the Commonwealth Summit, आपने कहा था शायद 2013. I know what happened. I was told that our Prime Minister will go, and he didn't go. When I went back, just before I was leaving, I got a call when I was at the airport that he decided not to go. So my efforts were all in waste because I had come to try and persuade the then Prime Minister to go. So there are these vetoes that are being. Similarly, the 2014 election, the UN HRC was meeting in Geneva. We had voted against Sri Lanka, but we managed to change our vote to abstention. How did we do it? Because that veto was neutralized. The main principals were busy campaigning in Tamil Nadu. The elections were around the corner. They missed it. And by the time we voted, and there was a bit of an uproar, but it did not become an election issue. But we have to be careful. Like fishermen, somebody mentioned fishermen issue. It's not just an irritant. It's become a very important subject in bilateral relations. And I think we need to know that our fishermen fish near Delft Island, not near Kachativu. They go right up to the Jaffna coast. I've personally seen it. I've personally seen a fisherman there being arrested, or the boats being, the Sri Lankan Navy has pointed out. So we have to, and bottom trawling, which is denuded, because Kachativu has been denuded of all marine resources because of our bottom trawling. So we take them into, their support. Now you say deep sea fishing, it's good. Can you provide the money for them to acquire deep sea trawlers? Then can go outside and fish. Will it be only the people in Rameshwaram Rameshwaram, or with the Karaikal, who is going to be affected? Can they access deep sea fishing, All that we have to study. Till we don't do that, these proposals remain on the paper only. So I think it's important. Benign hegemon, well, we are the big brother. We can't help it. I mean, look at what is happening in the United States. I mean, they have a very good relationship with their neighbors, yet Mexico, depending on whether a left government or a right government is in power, they consider US to be a hegemon. And obviously, our neighbors, I just want to mention that our neighbors know how to, better than we know how to handle it. Because they have a lot of experience and they play one against the other.
Yes.
Whether it's China or India, whether in the past it was US, they play that game beautifully. And we must learn from them how to counter them on that. I think Rajiv ji, aapne visa you mentioned about visa. That is an ideal utopian solution. I mean, I hope that does come about. But given the differences within, let us talk about SAARC. Within SAARC, we had motor connectivity. Even that couldn't, because Pakistan had built it. Then we had BBIN on our side. BIMSTEC is trying to move ahead in better connectivity. So under that rubric, under that umbrella, it in the future, it may be possible. But I won't bet any money on it, not in my lifetime at least.
As regards this social economic zone, special economic zones, you must have heard that Adani has established a company, Adani Port and and Special Economic Zone Private Limited, and they have said that they are moving in, and we are encouraged by this declaration from the Sri Lankans that we will give you full autonomy to manage the SEZs, and especially after they given it to China, they want to give it to others as well, and especially to India. They have opened up Trinco, Biagama, Trinco. These are the areas where they are offering us. But as I told you earlier, that we have failed to push our private players there. Even as I told you, when in 2020 we went there for 1.5 years, Adani hadn't done anything. So we have to find a way of pushing our private players there. Like Haman Tota, we know when they offered it to us, we didn't have anybody to work on it. So we need to have that capability with us to, when offers are being made, we need to seize that opportunity and do something about it. And otherwise, as I was telling you, why I was telling you that, it is reversal is very easy. You see, Modi ji gaye wahan, Lakshadweep gaye, Maldivians ने शुरू कर दिए तो we tried to push our tourists to Sri Lanka. Sri Lankans इतने flattered हो गए तो Sri Lankans बोले कि यार ठीक है बहुत बढ़िया है उनका tourism minister जो है public he went public and said that well we expected it from India, we are part of India. Do you know what happened the next day? Huge crowd built up around his house, around residence, and they started the kind of death to this Harin Fernando. That's Harin Fernando. So it can reverse very swiftly. The other thing, ETCA, we were talking about ETCA and all. There also we have issues. We need to also figure out how to handle them. We have a trade of about $7 billion with Sri Lanka. Out of that $5.5 billion, we export to Sri Lanka. So there is a huge trade deficit. We have that has a huge trade deficit vis-a-vis China, and we crib about it. And we'll expect them to crib about it as well. Of course, they don't have any other place to go to. They have to get it from us. But we have to find a way of convincing them that this is how it is. Otherwise, there is a way of shaping the perceptions, popular perception in the neighboring countries. And the kind of perception management that we are doing inside India, in the wake of elections and other things, can be extended to our neighborhood as well for better conduct of diplomacy, and it will be actually help diplomats more than anyone else. Thank you.
We're already late. I apologize for not being able to accommodate some others who may want to raise. I think we are late already by about for 20 minutes. So I'd just like to close the meeting today by not thanking. We have a formal vote of thanks, but I think we had a very interesting discussion, deliberation on the complexities that characterize India's relationship with Sri Lanka as with any other neighbor. And given the complexities and sensitivities, we got to navigate these relations taking due sensitivities. We have to be very, very careful. And as Ashok rightly pointed out, things can change very suddenly if you don't take sensitivities into account. Um, I think uh, this point has been made by various presenters, including Ambassador Sinha, that we cannot afford to give any impression of trying to dominate the discourse in these countries. As it is, whatever term you use to define India as a benign hegemon or a big neighbor, the fact is that India is much larger than many of our neighbors, and there's bound to be misgiving. Somehow, we also, in our dealing with these countries, uh, we have a sense of arrogance sometimes, and I think that doesn't help us. You can have arrogance or whatever you want to do, but I think the litmus test, the benchmarking should be with reference to your own national interest. And the question to ask is that by being arrogant with Sri Lanka or Nepal, uh, are we actually serving our national interest? The simple answer to my mind is no. So I think we got to keep this in mind, and we got to have patience and a large heart. Uh, I think it is not a zero-sum game in politics. Um, when I was dealing with energy security issues, the most talked about issue was that energy resources were uh, fast depleting. China was bidding for those resources, and that India should do whatever possible to up the ante. And I think that approach, as subsequently uh, we learned, was not correct at all, because these are resources, and you pay what the economic circumstances would dictate. And there was enough. Let China do whatever it wants to, and we still find enough to do. So I think this China factor was briefly discussed, that we got to be mindful of what Chinese are doing, but there is no point in being obsessed with China. Firstly, we can't help it. China will do whatever it wants to do, and our neighbors will obviously want to optimize their relationship. It's become fashionable in India, and not at the level of people so much, but even politicians, even people, government officials, even people who ought to know better. Um Anything in these neighboring countries which China does, it's a red rag for us. And the question that I often ask with in this relationship to our neighbors, why should we waste our energies on this question? Let our neighbors choose both India and China. They can optimize their relationship with both these countries as we did. Indeed, in fact, when I must repeat this, as I've done in other seminars, that India at a point in time had this unique distinction of maintaining extremely good relationship with Soviet Union. In fact, many in the Western world would regard India as a Soviet satellite, which was probably wrong, definitely wrong. And yet, India was the largest recipient of American aid, per capita at least. Now, how could that be possible? And if we did it, we obviously did it right. So how can we uh, prevent Nepal or Sri Lanka or Bangladesh from doing it? So I think if we proceed from that understanding, we would be able to, create a better relationship. Uh, we have a lot going. We have a lot of untapped economic cooperation potential. But I think one issue which is extremely important is the matter of trust. There is a huge trust deficit uh, in our relationship with our neighbors, and we have to lead the way actually as a bigger neighbor to creating that trust by what we do. So I think the future is very bright, as a lot of speakers have pointed out, and I think we have a unique opportunity to build on the present circumstances and develop a closer bond with Sri Lanka. So with these few words, I'd like to request. Sure.
Sorry, just Amitji, 1 minute. When you were mentioning Ambassador Gupta about the trust deficit, before that about relationship, I was reminded of one thing with Mahinda Rajapaksa used to tell us. Mahinda Rajapaksa, the person who was president earlier, pre-2015, he used to reassure us and say, China is a friend, but India is our relative. Now, whether he meant it or not, sometimes friends are better than relatives. But that's right.
Lovely note to enter it. What a lovely note to end it, sir.
So Amit, for a formal
Yeah,
vote of
thank you very much,
thanks.
sir. Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity, sir. So today we have gathered here to mark a significant milestone in the international workshop on India-Sri Lanka bilateral relations. It is an honor, a real honor, to host distinguished speakers such as Ambassador Ashok Sinha, sir, Ambassador R. Dayaker ji, esteemed member of diplomatic corps. They were expected, but at the last moment they had something else. So we are also privileged to hear from academic luminaries like Professor Rajesh Kharat and Dr. Ashok Bihuria, sir. The discussion today underscored, as mentioned by Ambassador Gupta ji, underscored the robust relationship between India and Sri Lanka, anchored by firm diplomatic bonds, mutual economic prosperity, cultural exchange, initiatives, shared regional interest, and people-to-people relationship. Ashok ji mentioned highly about it. On this occasion, I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude to all our distinguished speakers for sharing their valuable insights. Thank you very much. I extend my sincere thanks to all the participants and attendees, both in person and through digital mode, for their active engagement and contributions. Your participation played a pivotal role in the success of this event and in fortifying the bilateral ties between both the countries. As we conclude, I request and invite all of you to stay connected for more such events in future. Your continued support, ladies and gentlemen, would encourage us, and it is very crucial to the success of such initiatives. I thank you once again for making this event a great success. And I also take this privilege to invite you over a cup of tea upstairs. Thank you very much.
Thank you.